This next question begins with Chris Geisler. What role, if any, should the federal government play in education, public, private, homeschooling?
The fundamental thing we need to address here is the federal government does not belong in our educational process. Decisions when it comes to education and the needs of our children start with our families and start with our communities. It's up to us to make those decisions in order to make sure that our children receive the educations that reflect our values and reflect their economic opportunities. The federal government has no concept of what it means to be competitive in the world markets. We see that day in and day out. The inherent thing we have to recognize here is parents and communities are the ones to be setting the agenda, not Washington.
I'll second that. I think that also that would go a long way in weeding out all of these agencies that we have. We have at the federal level, we have the Department of Education. At the state level, we have the Department of Education. Excuse me. We absolutely need to keep it at the state and municipal level. I'm also a big fan of charter schools and the voucher system. I think it goes back to our freedoms.
Mr. Jacobs.
Once again, like my colleagues up here, the federal government has no business telling you what your children will learn. Sanitizing school books has been a main concern of mine for many years. Too many school books take world evolving events and bring it down to 3/4 of a page at the bottom in the middle of a book. What's a child going to learn with something like that? They have to teach the way we learn everything, and then let the child, when they become an adult, go for themselves. But the government has no right to tell you what you're going to learn and what you're not going to learn.
Education works best when it's directed by the parents and the community. Carol Ann are in the audience here, and Carol, some of my best memories were going into the school, reading to the kids, sitting with them at lunch. It's parents' involvement that is going to drive and should drive the education of our children. We need to foster an environment that's going to maximize that involvement through our parents. There are options. There are options to engage and to give parents choices. Options like schools of choice, charter schools, homeschooling, vouchers, and the like. But what troubles me, which is not talked about a lot, again, relative to the future of this country, is that in over half of our states, civics and history is not mandated to be taught in the public high schools. That's wrong. We need to continue to educate our children on the values and the values of our founding fathers and what it means to be an American.
Well, as a teacher and having been on the school board, the best way the kids learn and the best way that those school systems work is in a free market economy. And when you put the federal government involved, it takes away that free market economy, and you don't have competition. And what I saw on the school board, and the thing that made me the most nervous about where it was headed, was that the teachers would get tenure, they'd get lazy, and they weren't motivated. So if you bring in the voucher system where there's competition, where kids move from one school to another because that's the best school for them, that's a much better system. And the free market always rises to the top. When you force everybody to the middle, which the school system does when the federal government gets involved, that's a bad thing.
I have a fairly eclectic resume. Some might say all over the map. The one issue I've spent the most time working on in my life is school vouchers. This is a heart and a head issue for me. I worked in the inner city for, gosh, 4, 5, 6 years. I ran a privately funded school voucher program that gave inner city 8th graders the chance to go to a school of choice. I worked with the Heartland Institute on school choice issues. I worked for the Milton Friedman Foundation on school choice issues. I can't tell you the number of parents I've dealt with in inner city Chicago or inner city Waukegan or inner city Rockford who every day just cry out for an opportunity to get their kids out of a terrible neighborhood school. A terrible neighborhood school. There's a lot we all want to do. If I had one magic bullet, it would be to give every inner city parent in this country the ability to pick a school, public, private, religious, of their choice. And you know what else we've got to do? We have got to boost, promote, and encourage homeschooling.
I'm going to steal my 30 seconds here quickly. The fundamental thing we talked about a second ago is the fact that the government should not be involved in our school decisions. And as a piece of that, I would suggest that that means the end of the Department of Education. An organization with a $47 billion a year price tag with redundant programs we find in our states and our communities is unnecessary. Thank you.